Hi everybody, it's me, Mike Celestino from laughingplace.com, and I've got two new Star Wars books that I've read recently, and I wanted to give you a quick review of both of them. The first one that I read was called Star Wars Dark Legends by George Mann. He is the author of Star Wars Myths and Fables, which came out last year, and this is kind of a pseudo sequel to that book. That was a collection of short stories with kind of mythology inspiration, and this is a collection of short stories with a scary story or almost kind of a horror inspiration. Basically what he's done here, and I really like this concept, is he's taken a lot of kind of very familiar scary stories that you might tell to children, or even scary stories that are familiar to adults, and turn them into Star Wars stories. So, for example, there's one that's kind of almost a Slender Man kind of story, or even a vampire story, depending on how you look at it. But he's taken that and put, instead of a vampire or Slender Man, he put in a Sith Inquisitor that arrives at this orphanage and is kidnapping children that have force sensitivity or force powers. There's also a fun one that's kind of a werewolf or wolfman story. There's a really clever one that's like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type story that I really liked. There's one that's set on Batuu, and we get to visit Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities again, and it's you ever read that novel, Needful Things by Stephen King? I think they made a movie that's Needful Things, but that was a story inspired by that kind of thing, kind of a cursed object that a customer buys from Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, and it messes with him and his life after being warned, of course, but he doesn't choose to follow that warning. But my favorite story in this book was the ghost story, and that one follows an Imperial officer who gets promoted, and he's not sure why he was promoted. He's kind of promoted under mysterious circumstances, and he keeps asking, like, what happened to the guy that I replaced in the hierarchy of this Star Destroyer that I'm serving on? And he's kind of haunted by that previous officer's presence on the ship. And I don't want to spoil how that ends, but the cover here will give you a little bit of a hint as to how that story goes. But yeah, I really recommend this kind of thing. I'm really happy when they do kind of the weirder stuff with the Star Wars books that are coming out. And here's the backside. You can see the werewolf kind of wolfman story where they visit this planet that has this red moon, and this alien character, I forget the name of the alien species that already kind of looks like a wolfman, but at nighttime he kind of goes feral and starts hunting the other members of his, they're like looking for treasure on this red mooned planet that's uninhabitable because of this radiation that's getting from the moon that they're visiting. But yeah, definitely recommend. It's a lot of fun, very different take on a Star Wars short story collection by George Mann. And then next up this week, I read Star Wars Poe Dameron Free Fall, and this is kind of an origin story for Poe Dameron, as you would guess by the cover here. And obviously it stars the character played by Oscar Isaac in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but you've also got Zori Bliss, who was played by Kerry Russell in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and it's kind of the story about how Poe, he's kind of growing up on Yavin 4. If you read the Star Wars comic book Shattered Empire, we found out that Poe was raised on Yavin 4, but this is about how he ends up leaving that planet behind to join the Spice Runners of Kijimi that we found out he was a member of in The Rise of Skywalker. And you've also got Zori Bliss. So we find out how he meets Zori Bliss, though she doesn't go by that name in this story. They do have a lot of adventures together, and then we kind of learn how his path is steered away from that direction, because we know Poe doesn't end up leading a life of, or living a life of crime and being a spice runner for his entire career. He goes off and joins the New Republic Navy, and then later on the Resistance. But this is the story of his time as a spice runner, the characters that he meets along the way. We do visit Kijimi. We do see Babu Frick for a little while, that little guy, adorable little droid Smith on Kijimi. So he gets to interact with those people, and we meet some new characters, and there's a lot of action and adventure and some deeper, darker themes. The cover of this book kind of led me to believe that it would be more of a young adult kind of a thing, but I think it's appropriate kind of for all audiences. It's a pretty thick book. It's almost 400 pages long. So this is pretty satisfying, I think, for anyone who wants to learn more about Poe Dameron's life and history before the events of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, even before the events of the Poe Dameron comic book, where he's already fighting alongside the New Republic and the Resistance and all that with General Leia Organa and stuff. This is way before that, in his teenage years, in his youth. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of the story of Solo, a Star Wars story. So if they were to make a Solo, a Star Wars story, but for Poe Dameron, this is the story that it would be. His escape from his kind of boring youth growing up on Yavin 4 and his first adventures out in space, out in the galaxy, fighting as a spice runner. So recommend both of these. Yeah, Star Wars Dark Legends by George Mann. Really great artwork in this one, by the way, as well. And Star Wars Poe Dameron Free Fall by Alex Segura. Pick them both up. This one's going to be available tomorrow, and then this one's already available. So check them out. A lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching. This is Mike Celestino with laughingplace.com. We'll see you next time.